Cool. So Linda, yeah, just let me know when there's a certain amount, I would say like 15 minutes left, so that I can, talk to people through questions that you might have after what I shared today, okay?
Okay.
If you can do that, or anyone, just write it in the chat.
Yes,
so the first thing that I want to do is just say to everybody, thank you for participating in this experience today. I honor and deeply appreciate the time that you have and use towards wanting to learn astrology, and at least listening to the material that comes out my space. So thanks very much for wanting to participate and just listening in general. Today, I'm going to talk about the nature of skip steps, and in particular, the process of what it looks like from my perspective to work through skip steps. How does the soul understand its resolution? What types of insights naturally occur when the manifestation of emotional integration of skip steps looks like. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on today, sharing with you my soul reflections, sharing with you insights that have come through my own astrology chart. And I suppose on one level, I'm also using this opportunity to probably process the nature of what's currently going on for me astrologically as well, because when you do look at my astrology chart, you'll actually see that there is quite a lot of karmic stuff that's playing out. So I want to kind of share that with everybody today, how these planetary archetypes are playing out. So is anybody by any chance familiar with skip steps? Do you know what they are and how they have? Does anybody have skip steps in their own astrology chart that are pretty intense?
Yeah.
In other words, very strong connections?
1, 2. Yes, we have about 4 people with skip.
Okay. One of the things that really inspired me to understand skip steps over and above just, oh, look, I have this, was Jeffrey Wolf Green's own skip steps himself with the moon, and in particular, what we're doing here today. See, from my point of view, when I understood the nature of and read about the nature of his skip steps, one of the things was compassionate family, right? Pisces in the 4th house. And here we sit today with the body of knowledge that was disseminated through him into our field of awareness that brings us together, right? And we're also transcending the boundaries, moon Pisces, right? This relationship that we all are here experiencing, where we're all learning about soul, we're all learning about what does soul mean for us, what is our soul journey, and how we can also heal through that process. So there was a really, really nice or deep inspiration that manifested from his own skip steps, and how that soul work does actually bring quite a large reverb into your life. Like if you had to consciously pay attention to it more than what life will just, like the soul will naturally just create these consistent awarenesses in order for you to adjust yourself with these skip steps. It's not something that you have to, in a fanatical way, practice like I do, but they will naturally unfold themselves. Whereas, and that will come naturally. But for me, paying attention to them in that deep way and adding more sort of attention to it has really amplified what has come out of them for me personally. And that is an inspiration that I'd like to share with all of you, and whoever else is trying to understand the phenomena, so that you can see that there's quite a beautiful sense of awakening that comes. Like it actually influences your life in a really dramatic way, at least from my perspective and looking at Jeffrey Wolf Green's material as well. So there's a kind of legacy that our stuff. So I'd like to share with everybody a presentation that I created. so that okay. So again, just to amplify what I'm talking about today, I'm talking about skip steps. I'm sharing a little bit about, for anybody that's watching this video afterwards that is wanting to learn about skip steps and trying to understand it for themselves as well. But also, this is primarily a reflection of my own material. This is my own soul, opening up and really reflecting upon the nature of what this means for me, and it being that inspiration. When you look at my astrology chart, you'll notice, if you understand your archetypes really, really well, that this picture over here I chose on purpose. Part of my squares to the nodes, part of my soul journey here is about freedom. It is about being able to look at the sky, look at the wonder of and the vastness of the universe and connect with it in a very visionary type of way, and access infinity and find out what is the deeper truth that lies in that infinity, and then kind of bring that back down into a more tangible, grounded sense as a way of, this is what it looks like from my point of view. Part of that journey is about feeling the inner child, having that sense of freedom, knowing how to parent that inner child through traumas of abandonment regarding past life dynamics from countries, being orphaned, to not knowing what is masculine energy in its most authentic form, what is the respect of the feminine, not only in myself, but also in the actual world itself. And what does that look like in its most purest sense? And you'll see why the word purity is such a profound word for me as well, as I, kind of connect to the story of my soul. So this picture truly captures the essence of this little boy that's really seeking maturity, that's seeking dreams, that is seeking, like Capricorn lessons of, legacy in that way, but also coming in with deeply traumatized conditioning patterns that creates very limited guilt, grief, patriarchal, belief systems that are trying to be liberated. Okay. So just going back a little bit from that point of view and onto what are skip steps. So we just have a kind of background. So I love this picture over here because skip steps always, they correlate to the angles that planets are making to each other. And there's always, when we're understanding skip steps, there's always mathematical angles that we need to take into account. And there are always squares. Skip steps are squares that are taking place between three objects. So the south node and the north node, for instance. And then, of course, the planets that are 90 degrees from each node, all right? So taken from the EA glossary, planets squaring the nodes are called skip steps, which means the person has been flip-flopping back and forth between the south node, south and north node, without fully developing either. The evolutionary intent, of course, is to recover these skip steps. One thing to note that I've understood about this as well, and this may be as common knowledge to other people, but it's really, made a deep impact for me. Skip steps are something that have, from my point of view, a very wide range of expression. Okay. They're not as black and white, where there's just the soul hasn't been integrating this north or south node, and then you just have to go, okay, well, I just need to integrate it. To me, I've come across a lot of people where the nature of the skip steps themselves, and including in my own subconscious, or my own soul's journey, are like actual trauma, in which the emotional security is like so highly triggered through post-traumatic stress that in order to even try to do the north node or the resolution node in itself is not as easy as you just got to recover them. as an example. So there is such a there's such a delicacy towards understanding these nodal axes, and or should I say the squares themselves, that if you are working on your squares, if you are looking to pay attention to the dynamics and understand awareness around them, and you do feel and find yourself struggling with the nature of them in your life, it's a really good opportunity to cut yourself some slack and just really, really try to honor what is actually happening on a deeper level here, and to give yourself the best opportunity to say, whenever it is that I'm trying to integrate these things, and maybe that's it, that maybe that's what my skip steps are as well, because of it being in Virgo, which I'll show you. I truly, truly love this imagery over here because it honestly captivates the nature of skip steps themselves. Because I mean, the video, you know, the pictures themselves are really self-explanatory, but I'll kind of amplify a little bit over here, where it's like, is it the north node? Is it the south node? Am I in my south node? Am I in north node? Which side do I go? Am I flip-flopping between the two? It's like, where is everything? And from an evolutionary perspective, things that really make it fun for me is that when I meet people that have got skip steps, and they are unaware of the fact that they have skip steps through just generic astrology, not really offering the awareness that EA does bring to the table regarding this type of phenomena, you know, it's like being stuck in a box, or being stuck in a, I mean, this is maybe a little bit more brutal in terms of descriptions, but it's like being stuck in a jail cell where the actual prison wall / like cage itself is invisible. And you're completely unaware of the fact that this dynamic in your life is happening. That's at least how I've like experienced it and watched other people experience it as well. It can be such a traumatic thing to consistently be unaware of how difficult your life can be because of the unknowingness of why these dynamics are taking place. So this process of never actually getting anywhere and staying in the same place as you're just, having some lifetimes where, just experiencing your south node, and then sometimes you'll experience your north node, and you never really feel like you could fully change your reality, as it were, because there's always going to be dynamics that are, kind of, I would use the word sabotaging, but it's not, that cut and dry, but really affecting you in that way. So those really do captivate that inability to actually have your evolution progress, and it always feels as if it's just going to be like that, and the constant flip-flopping between the two. So for anybody that's unaware of the dynamics of what it looks like in the chart, the south node is the dynamics of an ego structure, an emotional reality, set comforts, feelings of security, conditioning patterns, feelings of familiarity. The north node presents itself also in the same way, where there is familiarity and a sense of awareness around a personality that you can be as, or act through, or represent yourself as. And it feels familiar, and yet at the same time, you notice that part of your life always consistently goes between these two dynamics, where one side you can be like this and the other side you can be like that. And this is always in opposition to each other. So planetary, or should I say north and south node, is always 180 degrees oppose each other, right? For anybody that has got some questions around my explanations, please, just jot them down, and then when finish the presentation, just share them with me, because there's tons of information that I could be, not highlighting that you could be aware of in that sense, to make it more clearer for you. The south, the skip steps themselves is 90 degrees from each symbolism. Okay, so the south node and the north node, there's 90-degree angles that are taking place. Okay. The way that you understand which node you need to integrate the recovery process, or understand the dynamics that are taking place in your chart, what you would have to do is you would have to stand on the planet itself, or planets, like in my case, for instance, that are squaring the nodes. You stand on that planet, you look directly into the center of the astrological chart, and you just basically extend your left arm, and the node that is on your left arm or pointing in that direction will be the resolution, okay? Or in this particular instance, as you can see, the north node would be the resolution here. So whatever symbols are over here, those need to be constantly integrated into the north node, or the awareness of those symbols needs to be integrated in the north node in order to establish a consistent emotional reality that is reflecting the integration of the north node. So the way I like to see skip steps is you're wanting to achieve a goal that has 5 steps, and you go 1, 2, 3, 5. And what happens is the aspect of 4 doesn't develop maturity, which then leads us to having shortcomings or shortfalls or aspects that are triggering you back into your south node because of immature emotional development. Basically, that's what it is from my point of view, emotional development that has not reached a peak where you can have flow or fluidity in your expression. And again, there are multiple reasons why this can be taking place. So that is a very, very, like a lot of information on that, but also at the same time very concise in terms of what skip steps are, and it is. When you want to look at it, planets that are squaring the nodes, they're 90 degrees, and there's resolution. So if, for instance, this like bubble over here was on this side, then the resolution would be the south node in this particular instance. Maybe just a bit of information over there. When the south node is the resolution node, the soul will feel within themselves that they've actually been doing this in the past, and maybe a sense of nostalgia and a frustration and feeling of frustration as well. The resolution is to do the south node in the same way again, but making different choices under the same circumstances. Also to note, and just finally over here, the north node and the south node actually have, from my point of view, and I believe I read this before as well through the glossary, the north node itself, when you have skip steps, are always going to reflect the past as well, right? Because you've lived those dynamics prior to this life, and you do live them in this lifetime as well as the south node. So the north node is actually something that is also symbolized as a south node in that way. Does everybody understand that perspective? Right? It's not something that the soul is now going to integrate into this lifetime to create balance. It is part of part of the past lives dynamic as well. Okay. So there's a chat over here, so I'll just see. Okay. Cool. So here's the charts that I've got at the moment. So on this side, the bigger chart over here, this is my natal chart with current astrological transits, where they are today or yesterday if I'm 30th. And this chart over here is actually the progressions. And one thing that I wanted to highlight was the nature of the moon that, and it has been for the last like 4 months on the Mars and Venus. So if you take a look over here, let me use the, okay, so there's the Mars and Venus. Those are the 2 planets that are in focus here. And then you have my nodes there at 16 degrees Sagittarius, and you have the North Node there at 16 degrees Gemini. And my Mars and Venus are 16 degrees Virgo, and they're actually squared completely. Can you see that? That's like a total square. That's like basically the way that I see that in my head, and the conversation I have generally with Source is, oh, I clearly see that you've told me that I have no choice in this lifetime to fix this, and that's what I've got to do. Okay, I get that. It's like there is no jail, get out of jail free card. I'm not playing Monopoly here. The soul's clearly serious about this issue, which, to be quite honest, I'm fully aware of. Thank you, Source. Thank you, soul. It's not like I can keep dodging this issue again. It clearly is coming to be resolved in this lifetime. I'm right here in the middle of it, as reflected in my progression, as the moon's progression is completely on that Mars-Venus at this stage. It's been there for the last 4 months. Also, something interesting to note, where has Jupiter been for the last year, since last year, August? It's been in Virgo. So I've had Jupiter transit my 8th house as well as Virgo, and also the skip steps there. Plus my solar return for last year was, and this year was, a 4th house Pluto, which, that's always gonna bring up some fun stuff when it comes to the nature of my chart in itself, because I have a 10th house Pluto. It's a polarity point there. So, and then of course you've got Saturn at the moment squaring those Mars Venus symbols, plus conjunct my South Node, and he's been playing around those big players at this stage. So let's come back to a little bit of groundedness here in terms of what I'm trying to reflect back to everybody. Everybody can see that my resolution is the North Node. Again, there's such profound repeating themes here. Look at the moon, right? If we understand the nature of the karmic axis, the moon itself is the midpoint of the South and North Node. So South Node, Sag; North Node, present, moment to reality; North Node, integration, awareness integration to create balance. Those two are right on top of each other. So my moon and my North Node is very, very sort of, it's amplifying this need to focus on that symbolism there in a very profound way. Okay. Again, source telling me that I don't really have an option. It's like, look, dude, you just have to fix this right now, and we'll fix, we'll let you do whatever you need to do afterwards. How does this play out for me? Let's look at the picture again that I was referring to. Look at the new phase relationship that Jupiter has to Uranus. Okay. There's clearly an intention here around the need, it's a new phase. So we're looking at a soul that is literally liberating itself from a belief system or core philosophy that it's held in the past. Jupiter is also in the house of Uranus anyway, or Aquarius. So there's an extra amplification of that need for detachment, breaking down, liberation, thinking outside the box, acceleration, all the fun Uranian experiences. And Jupiter is also in its own constellation. So there's a huge emphasis around core philosophy and belief system and personal truth that is being, liberated. But also at the same time, there's a clear issue here that the soul has around its balsamic phase relationship between Mars and Venus. Okay, right? You can see there, and then it's in the 8th house. So guess what Mars-Venus balsamic phase relationship in the 8th house looks like? And I'm part of the Pluto Libra generation. Technically, I'm not, because Pluto did go into Scorpio before it retrograded back into Libra, and then pulled me into soul awareness and said, okay, dude, this is where you need to fix your stuff. This is your last time. I know you want to be part of the Pluto and Scorpios and do all the fun stuff that they do, which is complete and utter soul empowerment, but you've still got Pluto Libra stuff to fix, right? It's complete and utter codependency. It's complete and utter extremes. It's complete and utter, like, who am I in relationships? I'll sacrifice myself for you. My empowerment is vested in the other. And what I've come to understand about my life up until this point in time is that, firstly, another thing that I wanted to highlight here was balsamic phase, right? Pisces, Neptune. Look how my Neptune and my moon are in opposition to each other. Okay. That moon also at this point in time, that moon opposition with Neptune has brought me such intense, like, psychic trauma, because I've not understood how to manage my sensitivity. Okay. So here's a person that's ultra sensitive and looks to see deep compassion and empathy and doesn't have any boundaries. Not moon, but Saturn, Sun, Pluto, all in that 10th house over there, saying, okay, kiddo, let's develop some boundaries here, healthy boundaries. Right?
SÍmÖN?
Yep.
15 minutes to go.
Fantastic. Thanks. So look at this dynamic here of no boundaries. Look at this dynamic of martyrdom. Look at this dynamic of, I'm here to save everybody. I'm here to look at the world and convince everybody of the ultimate truth. And there is only one way to live. All right. Look at the projections that can manifest through this experience. And it was brutal for me. The last year was incredibly brutal for me to understand these skip step scenarios, and how they were playing out was I wasn't able to emotionally develop wasn't able to emotionally secure my sensitivity and protection in myself. So that Mars square Uranus, square the nodes, there's deep subconscious anger and pain and like a lot of emotional suppression and repression that has come from just this upbringing in my own life, okay, through patriarchal stuff. And so what happens here is that it's like I can't empower myself to do Saturn, Sun, Scorpio work because I'm so codependent on the emotional reality of others that I'm unable to break away from anybody else telling me it's okay to do that, or that I have the capacity to be adult enough or father orientated enough to follow the dreams, right? So there's this imagination, there's this capacity to access deep truth and wisdom, there's this capacity to want to be the 10th house leader, etc. And yet fundamentally there's this deep Virgo insecurity around, is it right? Am I going to be good enough? Now, I don't suffer from that, but what I do suffer from is that deep sensitivity around my own separation. So anybody that speaks to me through their lens could just be saying a word like, hey, go pick up that coffee mug over there. And the way that I would hear that is like, I've done something horrendously wrong and that I should be punished intensely for the experience. And I wasn't able to separate another person's emotional trauma from my own. I wasn't able to understand that my own sensitivity in myself would create natural laws and truths in myself that cannot be applied to other people. If you read the balsamic phase Mars-Venus relationship thing in Jeffrey's book, he talks about a soul with this type of symbolism that would have a deep crisis manifest all the time when they would project their own idealizations onto others regarding how relationship patterns should be. Because what am I looking for? I'm looking for the ultimate relationship. I'm looking for the ultimate meaning. I'm looking for the timelessness that exists. The truth of it is that that would bring me to a place where I would never acknowledge other people's truths, other people's individualities, other people's expressions of their own ideas. So not only was I unaware of the validation I needed in myself, Uranus in the 11th house, I was also completely separate, like unable to separate my own relationship towards how people are different to me. And what came out of the last, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks, and including the last year, was that every person that shows up in my life is a reflection of myself. And that Mars and Venus now is playing out as this opportunity to meet a multitude of people and never actually see and to be able to differentiate between their identity and mine as different soul journeys, but everybody reflecting to me where they are in their own journey. Because the more I get exposed to other people's, because I work in this field, I get to talk to people every single day regarding this stuff, I'm able to actually see such a diversity of relationship dynamics that I'm able to see that balsamic phase in the chart completely, where the amount of information and the multitude of what type of relationship dynamics and identities out there, there's such a vastness of it. And when I'm paying attention to that process, I'm able to see myself as a reflection through other people. Like, does that make sense? The reflection in others is what I see in myself, because there is no separation. That's the point. The soul's trying to understand the nature of its polarity points of that Mars and Venus, which is the second house Pisces, right? To find the source within himself. But because of the moon and Neptune being in opposition to each other, I'm always going to see it in opposition, right? There's always going to be a separation. And as long as there's a separation, there's deep victimization. And the point here is to create oneness within myself, to see everybody as a reflection of themselves, but also a reflection of myself. That's where the non-separation exists. But to be able to differentiate between their emotional reality and mine and allow that to be the case, so that the Pluto 10th house Capricorn stuff doesn't create the suppression or the hypercriticism or the rejection or the convincing and converting. Does that make sense? The point here with the chart is to be able to see the truth in everybody as their own journey, as an expression of consciousness. and to be able to just watch the multitude of it and watch how the completion phase of Pluto at 29 degrees Libra, as well as the balsamic Mars and Venus, is to see all of the relationship dynamics that exist as one, and to have that wisdom to be able to then carry and share whatever it is that I see through that experience. Does that make sense? The skip steps here is to be able to differentiate, but also to come into the body and to express that on an emotional level, to validate my own emotions. So my own identity is validated, and also allow other people to validate their own as well, so that there is an actual communication of two identities reflecting where they are. So yeah. Okay, so
SΥmონ,
yeah, just
SΥmон.
Yep.
Oh, can we have a look at your chart again?
Absolutely. Where is the button? There it is. Okay.
Okay. Gemini North Node. Gemini is multiplicity. And I wonder whether the skip steps resolution is multiple. It's like more than one, that you keep seeing deeper and deeper layers.
Oh yeah. And because it's the 8th house as well, I would naturally be like deeply like looking beyond the surface to know, to understand the psyche of the multiplicity. So there's so much there that, I mean, I could literally spend 3 hours just talking about the symbolism for me. And I've really had to do the Virgo thing and condense it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Can anybody see how much the soul struggles with that Jupiter, Sagittarius, Uranus connection of so much stuff? And then the Virgo saying, how do you become incredibly sensitive enough to know what is appropriate information that allows for that knowledge to be disseminated without creating too much information, like Pluto conjunct Mercury in that intense relationship as well. It's like, how do you become sensitive enough to know what is the right frequency or fabric to touch that gives profound insight in the most littlest of time?
Yes. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I have a question. Because you're becoming more and more aware of this from your work in astrology and understanding it, looking back, I don't know, over time where this became this like aha moment of you and understanding yourself. What do you do now differently for your daily trying to set yourself for boundaries so you can do what you are doing with such, awareness out there with that moon and the Neptune and all of that going on? So what do you do now daily that's so different than how you were before?
Well, the difference now and then was that I wasn't aware that I could be separate. I wasn't aware that I had my own emotional reality. So for me, a lot of the wounded masculine in myself would come out as people weren't allowed to get angry with me because I would judge their actions as underdeveloped awareness or not taking responsibility for their own actions in a very intense way. Like I can become incredibly like I can take an arrow and throw it straight at the issue that you have at a soul level and create awareness around it. But that in itself can be too deep for people to process it. So as a defense mechanism for me, my sensitivity became something where I didn't allow other people to become sensitive. And as I've become aware of it in myself, I've allowed other people to naturally express their own sensitivity and say, hey, it's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to get pissed off, but I know it's not personal. And that's what's changed for me. And that's why, like for me, I can become so relaxed instead of getting super wound up and being like, look, you really, really need to take care of your stuff at this point in time. Stop projecting it onto me, because we're human beings. And I understand it myself as a human being as well on my own process. So yeah, that's definitely what came out of that compassion process.
It's almost as you've become aware of your skip step and are working with it consciously. And in your own work with astrology, you have others who show up who are in the same boat.
That is correct.
I have the same thing with my skip step and my astrology. It's like I became aware of it, and all of a sudden, that's what I get is mine. And mine's flipped. My resolution is the south node before I go to the north node. So fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah.
pretty fascinating to see that Pluto polarity point too, right? I mean, all of this is like forging that to come forward, your consciousness.
Yeah, and a lot of the time with that polarity point, you know, from what I've understood about one of the deepest expressions of the 10th house is to actually come into contact with the emotional reality beyond the external definitions. So to drop the definitions, to drop the identity of self in an externalized way, and immediately from that point of view, all words, because I'm like with that Chiron conjuncts my Pluto and Mercury, and I wanted to share this with everybody quickly. A lot of the stuff has actually got to do with the mother wound and the core sort of samskara that's actually attached to this. I mean, the skip steps to me are deeply, deeply traumatizing experiences for me. Like my whole entire, I'm not kidding you. When I have to do my resolution node, my body goes into such a deep traumatic state that my toes on the front become frozen with the amount of emotional suppression and non-blood work that goes there. Like I'm being literally, I'm not kidding you here. They actually become as if I've been putting my feet in frozen water for like a week. They just lose all blood supply. And you can see that with so much nervous energy that's with that Uranus, with all the Mercury that's obviously ruling the skip steps, as well as the North Node. A lot of the emotional suppression and trauma through childhood has created a very, very deep issue around feeling like I'm strong enough to speak up for myself. Can you see how the speaking up for yourself plays out there with so much of that woundedness on the 10th house? Like, how do I say to somebody, no, that wasn't okay to cross my boundaries, in a way where it's for real? You know, I can easily be like, look, you know, I understand how I've dealt with it in the past is, look, the guy's, you know, he's got his own stuff to deal with, etc. I couldn't be asked with this type of stuff. Whereas that's not honoring my sacredness. That's not honoring my own sort of emotional space that has also had its boundaries crossed, because through my mother, deeply, deeply wounded in herself, she didn't know how to do that. So they just kind of, you know, family growing up, they just kind of used and abused that Pisces energy that I have, that sensitivity, in a way where I'm good enough only if my slave, or my, like, the Stockholm syndrome, basically. Here's my oppressors, and I'm only good enough in accordance with what they've told me to do. And that's what I've had to actually fix through the last like years, come to realize, hold on, watch how my patterns of psychology tell me that I've got to behave this way. And I'm like, why do I even think that way? Like, why is my psychology even down that way? And then you watch these unconscious rooted patterns deeply, deeply submerged in my psyche. Pluto transiting my 12th house over there. Like, I've had to go so deep within my own subconscious to become aware of this patterning. But luckily, I've had the trine to that. So Pluto's been on my side. Woohoo!
SΥmონ, 30 seconds to go. If you could stop sharing your screen, we will say thank you. That was fantastic. Just fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's great.
I deeply appreciate it. Thanks everyone for sitting tight and hearing me, you know, do the Scorpio thing and just spill out all the emotional realities that present with myself.
I love the graphics. They were